Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the podcast. Today we have Mustafa to talk about a very sensitive topic. I'm going to let him introduce himself for that, but before we go into it in depth, I just want to bring out the sponsor or affiliate with this program, Christian's website, gamertech.ca. Use the promo code Nik and you will get a $25 discount on any purchase you make on computer accessories or computer parts or computers in general that you make off of his website. Um, yeah, so the details along with the research, all the information links, all the video links, whatever we talk about, we're going to make with proof. All those links will also be in the description of this video. Please check them out, do your own research, and my contact and Mustafa's contact on social media will be up in the description for you to reach out when it or if you want to discuss these topics in a civil manner. And I'll let Mustafa speak on for himself, but any threats that you make to me on these issues, if you won't say them to my face, then don't say them on the internet. But if you want to have a civil discourse about this stuff, I'm more than happy. My channel will be an open platform. You guys can come on in and we can have a full-fledged debate on this topic. So yeah, on that note, Mustafa, if you want to take it from here just to discuss some of the topics we're going to be showing today.
But I'll first introduce myself. Hi, my name is Mustafa. I'm a frequent guest on Nikhil's channel right now, and we're also very good friends as well. I myself am an ex-Muslim or former Muslim. I left the faith of Islam. I am an atheist and I'm an anti-theist as well. So I do stand not known necessarily against only Islam, but also generally against bogus ideologies, bogus theistic ideologies, or any ideologies that are very cult-like. That is very anti-cultish. So that's how I could describe myself. And like Nik said, yes, please do follow us, but please don't send death threats. Don't send nasty threats. Don't be nasty online. I've received death threats. Nikhil has received death threats, and we do receive death threats, we will not hesitate to report them. We will not hesitate to report or expose said threats to our social network. And if anything, if you want to have a civil discourse, please try to have a civil discourse online. You may disagree with us, but you can have a civil discourse, and we are more than happy to entertain you. All right,
Yeah.
Nik?
Yeah, just on that note as well, like the five fingers on my hand aren't the same, so I'm not going to expect different people to have the same mentality and ideology. So if you do see something that we made a false statement on or something, I know that everyone has their differences of opinions, and if it is a fact that I am wrong or Mustafa is wrong, I'm pretty sure we're more than open to take that and change. If I'll give you a list of times I was wrong and publicly admitted it. So if I am wrong or if anyone on my channel is wrong, please feel free to reach out to us and tell us in a civil manner, and we'll happily discuss it. But again, any threats on this issue will be met with the proper procedure, legal procedure.
All right, Nik, what would you like to ask me?
So yeah, this started off basically with two topics. One with the current conquering of Taliban of
Taliban.
yeah,
Yes.
conquering with the Taliban who just conquered Afghanistan. The situation that's going on there. I actually saw this channel called Ali Dava, and he basically was talking about how people were receiving women were able to talk to the Taliban and negotiate and all, and we're how I wouldn't say like chummy with them, but like somewhat supporting and agreeing with the Taliban. And I know you and I both have disagreements with this topic. The
Yeah.
second topic is there's this video of this dude. I'll put his link on video link showing that as well, where he's torturing his wife, I believe. So I
It's a
want to have a discussion about both these topics. So in any order you choose, Whichever one you want to start talking about first, feel free.
Yeah, I wish to talk about this Salahuddin fellow first,
All right.
because this is somewhat, this is something people are unaware of first, and that is he posted a live video on TikTok, and he's showing that how he's dealing with his patients via exorcism. That is, he claims that they are possessed by jinns or jinni. Jinns are like demons, basically. Like, these are the supernatural creatures that have many powers. It's a belief. There's no evidence. It's an Islamic belief, but there's no evidence for their existence. There's no, what do you call it, evidence of their activity. There's no evidence. We've gone so far and we have not found a single shred of evidence for the so-called jinn status. And these are in the realms we have started to accept the fact that these are more mere myth in mythology or legend status. Now, what happened is that he posted a live video, and even on Instagram too, he's posted it, Salahuddin_7, where he posted a live TikTok video of basically how he's got the girl covered up, and he's forcing her to listen to, like, Islamic tunes. And he also, and this is happening in Scarborough, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. This is happening somewhere in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
And let me just say that it's very close from my house.
Yes, it is very close to where Nick and I live, and this is why we want to raise this issue, because this hits close to home. And this is someone in the video, I think even Apostate Prophet Ridwan, he shared this video, and this girl is legit saying, "I can't breathe." And this
he was essentially waterboarding her. If anyone sees the video, they'll know. Like, the only difference between waterboarding and this is that she wasn't on an incline.
Exactly.
That's the only difference. Essentially, she was getting waterboarded.
Exactly. So, if anything, like Salahuddin_7, let me just give me a second. Just give me a second. So I'm just looking him up. Yep, Salahuddin_7. We'll give you a link to his TikTok. But I do want to expose. Now he's changed it to 77. Salahuddin_7. Now he's actually there's two.
I'll put a link to his description. And this gentleman, whoever you are, what you did was wrong. If you want to come up and explain to us why you did that on my channel, there is a platform and we'll give you a handful of time to defend it. But as of right now, I can only say that it's wrong.
It's not only that, he's, this could potentially be a criminal case too, especially if you've held someone against their will. I know you can use the excuse of exorcism and all that stuff, but that stuff is fantasy. Exorcisms, from whether you're from the Christian faith, the Hindu faith, the Jewish, Muslim faith, exorcisms are not effective. They are very cruel. They're very, painful for the victim. And the first thing, I would avoid exorcisms completely.
Visit the proper medical field.
Yes,
psychiatrist or whatever doctor. At least visit a family medicine specialist if you're a Canadian citizen. At least you get that for free with your OHIP card. Visit a family physician, and they'll tell you where to go.
Exactly. So I highly advise, like, go to a family physician, go to a walk-in clinic, to say the least. Go to a hospital, go to a doctor. Do not go to these what do you call it, charlatan status, because I did message this person. I said, what you're doing is wrong. You are being fraudulent. And I was calling him out on this. I actually shared in 2 or 3 of my Instagram and Facebook accounts, and he blocked me since then. So I do wish to, I have been looking into the procedure on how to report this incident. So, this is, if the video is still up, I have the pictorial evidence for this. Nick will provide the link. I think Apostate Prophet's link he will provide.
Yeah.
And, you will get a better idea of what is going on. So this is something, if you're watching this, if you're in Toronto, please let us know, like, if you have any information on this. or if there's any way you can help us with, how to like approach this legally, or if there's any advice. I have been also looking into like, exorcisms as well, their legality. Um, right now, it's a bit, I still have to do my research on how, what do you call it? Well, what's because it could be, potentially a gray area. I might be wrong, because there is the religious aspect of it, but I feel like there is some major negligence that's happening. Someone is being held against their will. And this is not just the first victim. There have been probably many victims. He's already interviewed 2 patients, and this procedure itself is horrendous. It's wrong, and it has no backing in,
scientific
research
procedures.
whatsoever and any facts. If anything,
Yeah.
what do you call it? He claims on his profiles that he's fighting Shaitan and all that stuff. That's another whole rabbit hole I would love to get into. If Nick asks me, like, what made me leave my religion to begin with, it was the existence of Shaitan, or Satan was the first, straw that
Actually, you know what? This is a podcast, right? We got time.
Yeah.
So why don't you just explain to us on this note why you left religion overall?
Overall, okay. I think I was studying. I was looking into the Quran. I've looked into the Bible as well. I even see some, like, I watch some like talk shows on, like, I think I was watching there's some archaeology regarding biblical archaeology, right? Because I'm very interested in this topic. And I follow this channel called Religion for Breakfast as well. So he's an amazing channel. I highly recommend, because he takes it from a more academic approach. Now, what happened was that I found out that through this research that the character of Satan had an entire evolution, that is. The character of Satan, and I wish I had like next time when we do it, I'll actually do a presentation, but I'll try to summarize it, okay? I'll do a presentation next time. I wish I had prepared this presentation. But because this is a very interesting topic of Satan, or Satan, the devil, that is. People know him as Lucifer. People call him the evil incarnate, that is. And he's the arch nemesis of God, so to speak. So he's the serpent, yada, yada, yada. We kind of know the legends behind it. However, what's interesting is that when I read Genesis, I found out that there's no mention of Satan himself. Yeah. Satan himself doesn't appear in Genesis. It's actually a serpent. And the story says that the serpent lost its legs because of tempting Eve from taking that fruit. There is no mention of Satan. It was only until the book of Revelations, as well as the book, it's called The Life of Adam and Eve. It's like an intertestamental book. So you see, the Bible is divided into the Old Testament and the New Testament, which you have the Gospels. In the Old Testament, you have like the Torah, and book of Joshua and everything. Now, this is an intertestamental book, where Satan is the one who's at the garden. And then eventually the book of Revelations links the serpent to Satan. So this is like, imagine Genesis being written around 500 BCE. Now, around 100 AD, this new character has suddenly replaced the serpent 600 years later. So this is where I started to see, this is just a sort of a reflection of the people's beliefs of the time. And then when we skip to another 500 years, and we assume that the Quran was authored around the year 620, 630, I believe that's around that time the Quran was authored.
Yeah.
We have the Satan character. His name is Iblis, and he's a jinn this time. He's not a fallen angel. He's not an angel this time. He's a jinn, specifically a jinn. And a jinn is a different creature from an angel. So now
for the audience, just a quick question. What's the difference between a jinn and because I know both, I know a jinn is supposed to be like an evil spirit, but what's the difference between a jinn and an angel?
Okay, so jinn is not necessarily evil spirit per se, but it's the alternate spirit or the alternate being that lives with humans. That is, it can be good, it can be evil, it could be demonic, it could be angelic, but it has the best. It's the word in the English language is genie. Though the way Aladdin represents genie is not necessarily accurate because these beings, they're very cunning, but they're also not as clever. They're very complex beings, very, very complex beings, just like humans. So they have, but they're invisible to humans, and they have godlike powers. But they were originated in the belief of the Middle East, the ancient Middle East. This was believed that these creatures used to exist. And an angel, on the other hand, is one of the, I think, if you call like God, and then his agents are the angels, the direct agents that are working for him, the angels themselves, the ones who are relaying the messages to the prophets, the messengers, etc. The ones that you see on TV with the big wings, Castiel from this show Supernatural. So that's what an angel is, and a jinn is a completely different being altogether. An angel is different, and a jinn is different. So I hope I tried to explain it as simply as possible. Again, I wish
Yeah.
I had a PowerPoint to better explain it, because this is off the blue, right? This is
Top of
uh,
your head, yeah.
off the top of my head. The simplest way I could explain it. Um, the angels are, what do you call it? They are there's angels are different from demons, and then there's jinns. Jinns are very different from demons as well, but I think in Christian mythology they could be confused with demons as well. It's a bit of a mess with Abrahamic mythologies. If you look at all three, because all three religions have like very different interpretations of different kinds of creatures that exist. Now back to the
Yeah.
topic at hand. So yes, so we saw the evolution. There was a serpent in the garden, but then Satan comes in the garden, and then suddenly Satan, he's in the garden. He's also a jinn as well, which which kind of shows that there's an evolution of this character. There's no consistency with this character. Then I found out that this character, if you study the Old Testament based on the times it was written, this character was the negative attributes of Yahweh or God or Elohim, the negative aspects of him, extracted and then created into a separate entity altogether. Because the word Satan originally just means an obstacle. This obstacle could be human, this obstacle could be celestial. The non human appearance, I think, that comes in the book of Job, it's called Hasatan. Hasatan means the Satan or the accuser. He sort of plays a more of a prosecutor kind of role. And he actually is an agent of God. He's not against God, he's an agent. So from an agent, he slowly becomes the enemy in later writings. So when you see the passage of the writings, you kind of see that these are just negative attributes of this one God that were extracted and created into a separate entity, because monotheists had an issue. Here's the problem with monotheism, because in that time, religions were polytheist. Like you had the Greco-Roman religion, you had the Hindu religion as well. These polytheistic religions had
These
explanations
are commonly called as pagan religions, right?
for pagan religions. Like even the ancient Arabian religion was pagan at that time. So
Yeah.
these religions, they had their multiple gods. They had an entire divine cast. There were good gods, there were evil gods. So this kind of conveniently explained the problem that okay, why do horrible things happen? Evil gods. Good things happen? Good gods. So it kind of filled in the gaps easily. Now with monotheism, you have just one God, not one supreme being. And monotheists might have faced the fact that if this being is also responsible for the good things, is he also responsible for the horrible things that happen? And these monotheists might have questioned this, and this in Israel, ancient Babylon, where they lived. ancient Arabia. So they might have questioned this, and then this being sort of came as a result of their um, this being came actually as a result of their uh, sort of like a scapegoat of sorts, sort of a scapegoat that to explain the horrible things that happen, because you had creatures like that what do you call it? There are in the Bible, especially. There are horrible things committed by God, but He's not necessarily directly doing it. He's sending an agent. Agents like Malach Hamasit is the pestilence. So pestilence, he destroys the crops, he destroys everything. So the destroyer, that is. So he sends the destroyer. And also, if I would have brought in, and this is where I think a PowerPoint would have helped better. Next time we'll do a PowerPoint. Remind me next time we're doing a PowerPoint, where I think Babylon was sacked in 586 BCE by the Babylonians. No, not Babylon. Jerusalem was sacked. And then that's where they were forced to go to the Babylon, Persian area. And there they probably met the Zoroastrians. And the Zoroastrians had two gods, Ahura Mazda and Ahriman. Ahura Mazda being the energy of light, and Ahriman being the energy of darkness. So they might have come across this concept and might have borrowed it, the Satan character, from Ahriman as well. So there is definitely some influence from Ahriman as well. So that's why we've created the Satan and God, two dynamics. But we haven't raised Satan to the level of a god, because we have to maintain, again, according to monotheistic mythology, they have to maintain the hierarchy. But sort of like a rebel, to created a rebel. And the modern Satan, I think you've read the work of, was also influenced by fictional works such as John Milton and Dante's Inferno. Dante's Inferno and John Milton represent Satan being he's living in hell in Dante's Inferno. And then we also have John Milton's Paradise Lost, where Satan is the anti-hero or the protagonist of the story. And he's a rebel in that story.
Yeah, and I have a question here. If, let us say that Satan himself is a punisher of evil, you go to hell, he tortures bad people and all that.
Yeah.
What makes him so bad? He's literally punishing evil people.
That's where the confusing aspect comes in, that he's an agent of God. He's also doing terrible things, but he's also punishing the terrible people. It's a very because it's a result of the sort of mythology, fiction, beliefs in different times and different phases sort of affect our natural our perception status. Our perceptions are influenced by religion. Different religions have different interpretations of the creature Satan. The Jewish mythology is different, Christianity is different, and Islam a very different perspective. And then you have what do you call it, pop culture, that also influences our view of Satan as well. So it's a kind of a mishmash of different what do you call it, aspects of the human expression that has made this character a little more intriguing, but more complex, because he's also doing the bad things. It's very complex. But the ultimate agreement is that we should fear him and denounce him, because he promised to tempt the descendants of Adam into sin. So he tempts you to do sin. That's why we should fear him, we should denounce him. And he's the perfect scapegoat in that aspect.
Yeah. So I think from the main topic we were dwelling off a little bit, but essentially I think that's your story as to
this is why where first doubt came, right? So this is where my first doubt came. The story gets long, and because this concept had a lot of overlap, not only in one religion, but 3 religions at the same time. So then I started questioning, what else is influenced by other polytheistic beliefs or other, ancient beliefs that were no longer true? And I found out The Quran has references to legends such as the Sleepers of Ephesus, the Alexander romance. You have Alexander the Great is mentioned in the Quran, and then you have what do you call it? Legends such as Harut and Marut. So different legends sort of influenced the Quran, as well as like there were some inaccuracies of history as well, and then there was nothing that adds up, as well as when you look at like historical evidence of the existence of certain characters like Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, there's a lot of evidence, is there, for their
Yo,
existence.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you look at the existence of Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Abraham, these characters, for example, they don't have a lot of evidence for their existence, do they? We, especially historical evidence from the time period they supposedly lived, we don't know where they lived. We don't know. We only get the information from the Bible and the Quran. But honestly, that information is very vague. It's not consistent. It sometimes contradicts itself. So this is why I sort of like, and also I saw this is also another aspect of religion that I also distance myself from. And then finally, the last aspect was the slavery, the support for slavery in the Quran and the Bible, as well as the Hadith, the support for child brides that I saw, the kind of I saw the punishments in Deuteronomy, I saw the punishments in the Quran, I saw the punishments in the Hadith, and I was like, this kind of reminds me of an ISIS video that I just saw. So it just reminds me of terrorist groups like ISIS. They're just doing the exact same thing. So this is why I was like, you know what, I'm not. Also, and then my logical thinking kind of concluded that there's no the claims of these religions and claims of religions are just claims. They're very misogynistic, and they have the capacity to create fanatic extremist groups that can pose a great danger to society.
Yeah, like I think that brings us to the next question as well, because of this video that we just talked about with the gentleman who was, or I shouldn't say gentleman, the guy who was essentially waterboarding his wife,
Yeah.
just a 10-20 minute drive from my place. He was committing something that was in the culture or religion or in the book was considered something that correct, but scientifically has no evidence and is not only not beneficial in scientific terms, but can be considered harmful. So what in religion, why is it okay for people to follow such pseudoscience and deny medical or scientific accuracies? Why is it so painful for them? And also in gin and tonic, I brought in a few non-medical things. I brought in some basic geology facts that people couldn't, Muslims couldn't really debate and it was from their own book. So why is it so hard for people in any faith to identify what pseudoscience is and fight it?
I think the problem comes with I think you brought up some claims last time. I remember you brought up camel urine as well as the studies on cow urine. You also brought up studies regarding, I think the embryology as well that you
Yeah.
debunked, and the claims of I think, yeah, there are some pseudo the scientific miracles claims, that is.
Yeah, it's like the
Yeah,
earth was not in balance and God
yeah,
had to put mountains on the earth to like make it balanced.
yes,
And then
yes,
I asked like if the earth is balanced or in balanced, why are there still plate tectonics? And he laughed, telling me that it was just theory. And we can
mm,
clearly see plate tectonics moving.
yeah,
Like
absolutely. I think part of it is, part of it is indoctrination, because you can't. I think it's the mental, like when indoctrination happens, it happens from childhood. You are, kind of in a subtle way. You're sort of like, you have to accept this as a reality, the claims of your own religion. But then the same people would laugh at the claims of other religions. For example, I think I saw, someone making fun of, a Muslim man was making fun of a statue made of stone, that someone's worshiping that statue made of stone. But he himself is walking around the Kaaba 7 times, which has the stone itself. It's
Like there's not even that. Like if you go to, let's say, some idiot named there's this idiot named Ali Dawah.
hmm
All his clickbait titles are Zionist or whatever, converts to
anti-Zionism
Islam, or
and all
it's
that
all
stuff. Yeah.
clickbait, and then all he does is like talk like a used car salesman, and basically, and his technique is not teaching them the truth, but basically convert now or I'll kill you style of marketing, almost like an MLM style marketing, where
Yes,
like
exactly.
they have to convert by force, essentially.
Yeah, and if anything, like I think doubt is punished. The problem with these religions is that doubt is punished. And when doubt is punished or thought crime is punished, that makes people fear it more, because the doubt is punished maybe on this earth, in some cases, maybe in the next life, for example. Like, you could go end up going to hell if you doubt like the teachings of Allah or Yahweh, for example. And or Jesus, like, you deny that Jesus is the Son of God, you could go to hell for this. So I think it's more to do with, like, there's fear, the fear aspect as well, that they're not willing to admit. Also, there's the psychology aspect, like in MLMs. I think we last time discussed that the reason people get hooked into this is because they don't want to admit to the fact that they've just wasted their time. They don't want to admit that fact, that they had wasted their time buying into a scam, a literal scam. So I think these are the two aspects that we can definitely look into. One is fear, the second is buying into a scam. I think I would add a third element too, is that um, how the society or the environment around them treats doubt, for example. The doubt is punished not by the gods but by the followers themselves. For example, I've had stories of, like, ex-Muslims who took off their hijab. They faced a lot of harassment, for example. Some former Christians themselves who were ostracized from their community. Some former Hindus as well who were ostracized or treated, when they converted to another religion, for example, they were ostracized, for example. And it's sort of like they they are on a, like, it's sort of like it's a mechanism of control. Like, you kind of find out that the mentality is also an us versus them, right? So it's like a hive mentality, us versus them. And if someone deflects, they're your enemy. And they're the enemy, they were the enemy all along. And there's this is a way of, like, not accepting responsibility, is that what if something is wrong with you, that the reason why they left to begin with. And we also see this problem with, like, numerous modern cult-like religions too, like Jehovah's Witnesses, former Mormons, former like uh, so former followers of different children of God. This is it's a very, like, the fear aspect. Yeah, so these aspects that I discussed, fear, um, the what do you call it, indoctrination from childhood, then what do you call it, the society itself, and some people just don't want to admit that they just wasted their time.
Yeah, so on that, like this Ali Dawah dude as well has another video where he was, I wouldn't say straight out supporting the Taliban, but saying, "Oh, look, the Taliban are treating women respect. The one Jewish guy wants to live under Taliban rule and all that. And like I sent you those videos as well, so you can see them,
Yes,
and
I
you have the
saw.
proper preparation for this as well. What do you think what do you think the consequence is for popular people like that showing support for a terrorist organization like the Taliban?
And it's funny too, when you sent me these videos, I also had a chat with Haris Sultan. He's a famous ex-Muslim atheist as well. And we were talking about how there's lip service paid to a terrorist group like the Taliban in Afghanistan. People are going as far as to say that there's a good Taliban and a bad Taliban as well. They also go as far as to say differentiate between Afghan Taliban and Pakistani Taliban. So there's two branches. And they do exist for sure. Afghan Taliban and Pakistani Taliban. They might have conflict between the other, but you know, they do unite under one ideology. Now, this happened. This sort of like lip service started off with mostly Pakistani media, Pakistani officials such as Imran Khan himself, like kind of pays lip service, or there are human rights activists in Pakistan, like H.K. Niazi, who's paying lip service to the Taliban, saying that, oh, this is Western propaganda. And there's a lot of Pakistanis, which is surprising to me. And Ali Dava, I feel like, is also catching upon this as well. And he's so a person like Ali Dava, the detriment is that it will backfire on you really hard. This will backfire on people like Ali Dawah, people like Muslims in general, people in the Muslim community at large. It will backfire so hard because the Taliban's crimes will be exposed. And they're already starting to get exposed. They've done crimes in the past. What makes you think that they changed now? They follow a fundamentalist ideology, and they want to enforce their rules. If you actually look kind of closely, they want to apply their own rules. And at first, it's a repeat pattern. They will promise peace, but then things will turn upside down. So
Quite like a heroin addict, they're an abuse addict. They need to
exactly,
abuse the person next to them or else they'll die.
exactly. And I think what this is sort of doing is that they're trying to not get the Taliban to react to the world around them. I think that's what's happening, especially from Pakistan's end, that they don't want Taliban to come into their territory. So they're like, okay, you guys are good, you guys stay on your territory. Because there are accusations of Pakistan supporting the Taliban, but in reality, Taliban doesn't have anybody support. They're a fundamentalist organization. They're just like hired goons. They're like hired goons practically, and they want to enforce their own.
And they share a lot of similarities with many other religious extremist groups like the RSS.
Yes, exactly. So they are very unpredictable ideologies. They are very unpredictable groups. So they can if anybody benefits them, they will align themselves with that person, with that entity, for example. Like Iran has in the past supported the Taliban, even the Shia Iran. This is a Shia Shia country, but Taliban would not spare Shia Muslims. They would actually kill them on sight. But because there is, if there's money involved, then the tone changes.
And on that note as well, I'm sure they get a lot more government support than people think as well, especially from the Muslim countries, because let me just give an example. There's so many people trying to escape,
Yes.
as people call them, brothers and all in the various other countries,
Yes.
but I don't see Saudi or
Yes.
Pakistan taking in refugees.
I kid you not, one of the, I think, ministers in Canada, I think her name was Mariam Munsaf.
I have the link to that video. I'll
Yes.
put in the description as well.
She called the Taliban brothers. I know she's of Afghan origin. And then she later claimed that, oh, it's Islamic culture to call even your enemies brothers. And I thought, hang on a second. I've grown up in an Islamic environment. We've never heard this concept before of calling enemies brothers. And
How come no one's called you a brother?
exactly, how come no one called me a brother, for example? And it's sort of weird. I mean, I did have people call me brother, but it's not like I'm slaughtering their kids. I'm just
Yeah,
having an ideological debate with them.
difference.
There's a
Yeah,
big difference. Whereas if someone kills your kids, I won't call them my brother, would I? No.
no. And
And
like the thing with the Taliban now is that those guys, like you mentioned, they are hired goons, but like the thing is, I think that what they're doing right now is what they've been paid to do or hired to do or something like that, because it's the same thing with the RSS and the BJP. I know
yeah,
there isn't actual proof, but like it's common knowledge that the RSS and BJP are like this, quite chummy,
exactly. Yeah.
and like again, like both of them, I don't want that coming at me. If you have
Mhm.
any disagreements, message me. We can talk about it. But like, so I think there is something underneath going on that in everyone says, "Oh, bring it out to court and all that," but like in countries like this, bringing stuff like that out to court can mean certain death. So that's
Yeah.
probably the reason why it's not coming out. And there's probably something a lot more deeper that is being hidden when it comes to the invasion of Afghanistan.
Yeah, by the Taliban. There's definitely something deeper. There's also the drive of, you know, them, what do you call it, enforcing their ideology. They want to achieve Sharia, or they were sheltered by surrounding countries like Pakistan, or, like Pakistan comes on the list where, they were sheltered because there was a operation in Swat Valley in Pakistan. And this was this is where things get a little shady, like, because the Pakistani army has had a past of using fundamentalist groups to infiltrate places like Kashmir, for example, places like Afghanistan. So there has been a history behind this. So this has tarnished the reputation of
Yeah.
Pakistan, and at the same
When I
time.
gotta ask a really nice question,
Mhm.
why is it that when India lifted a law on its own state, Imran Khan was standing in front of the UN crying, but when his neighboring country gets occupied by a terrorist group, he's standing there giggling at it?
Yeah, exactly. Which is where Imran Khan portrays hypocrisy as well. This is where his
He cares so
hypocrisy.
much about his brother, so why is he sitting here giggling with his hand in his pants?
Yeah,
Like when his neighboring country got, why is it Canada's responsibility on the other side of the world to take
exactly.
20,000 refugees when there's so many, like Saudi and Dubai, all these countries, I know they're wealthy as hell. Why don't they provide the refugees?
The only I think Muslim countries that even accepted refugees, Pakistan, Iran, and Tajikistan. And the reason these countries accepted more refugees than the Western states was because A, they're close by. They border Afghanistan. Let's face it, this is people, and this is the closest thing to sort of freedom that they can get from the Taliban. Um, and that is Pakistan, Iran, and Tajikistan. Now, and also you have to look at the geography as well. It's a lot more difficult for countries like Canada, USA, Germany, for example. Germany accepted a lot of refugees, and it's geographically also more difficult because they have to fly or they have to be shipped or something like that. So there's a longer process, naturally speaking, because there's a lot of natural borders. So people are like, "Oh, the West is hypocritical," but I'm like, they're also accepting a lot of refugees too. So
Yeah,
what's but then the ones who didn't accept refugees, which was funny, is Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. And you can kind of see that they even when the Syrian situation happened, Turkey accepted refugees, but none of the Saudi countries did. And Turkey, even though a Muslim country, is a secular country, for example, has secular laws. So it has accepted a lot of refugees. A lot of countries in Europe did, and I think it's mostly because of with Saudi Arabia, and it's difficult to say because Pakistan and Bangladesh, even Bangladesh, I recall, accepted a lot of refugees from Rohingya, for example. The problem with accepting refugees is also because I get it that it could create some instability. It will be bad for your economy in the short run, especially. It can be bad, and if you allow an influx, you can still you can increase crime rate can increase as well. But then, and the problem is that the wealthiest nations, the Gulf nations, have so much capacity that they can actually easily accept said refugees, and they don't. And at the same time, they don't, and people don't have the willingness to go to those countries. Why? Because they're not going to get the same freedoms. They're not going to get the same freedoms like you would get in, for example, Canada. They're not going to get the same freedoms because there's freedom of expression, there's freedom of to vote, freedom of mobility. There's an entire constitutional protection which is not guaranteed in these countries.
On that note, I just want to ask a question. I think this should be the last question as well, because we're approaching an hour.
Oh, wow,
So we'll dwell onto this as well.
yeah.
You mentioned your life story. You mentioned the current situation in the world, and you were basically taught. You never said religion itself is bad, but you were talking about the culture and why you chose not to accept it. But there is going to be some asshat out there that's going to call you an Islamophobe. What, first of all, is your? I wanted to ask. So this is going to be a three-part question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that what we had now is Islamophobic? What is Islamophobia? And three, there's many laws out there and a lot of other things that people claim are Islamophobic.
Yeah.
What differentiates an Islamophobic law to a non-Islamophobic law? Like, for example, the hijab ban in France.
Yeah. Now, I don't like the term Islamophobe or Islamophobia, for example, because it initiates that you fear Islam, for example. And it's a term that's also thrown around a lot. It kind of categorizes critics of Islam, of the ideology itself, and also bigoted racists into one category. Bigoted racists, bigoted xenophobes, bigoted anti-Muslim bigots, for example. It would put them all in one category, which is not the case, the reality at all. So I'd like to replace this term Islamophobe because originally this term was introduced, I think, in the 70s. And then before that, it was supposed to be against liberal Muslims. So this was an anti-liberal Muslim term, which became then, it was carried on, I think, after Salman Rushdie and the 9/11 incidents. It kind of caught on in the Western world. Now, I would replace this term with anti-Muslim bigotry. That you discriminate against someone based on the fact that they're of a Muslim faith. For example, refusing them service, what do you call it? Like not offering them the same services as you would to someone else. Mistreating them in a way just because they happen to be of that faith, etc. So this is something. It's anti-Muslim bigotry. I would replace it. And then there's also the weird confusion between Islamophobia and racism, for example. This I would not categorize as a form of racism because Islam is an ideology. It's not a race. And Islam is something you can convert to or you can leave as an adult. So it's something that you can convert to that cannot be, because it can be a person of any race that can convert to this faith, for example. And followers of Islam belong to almost all ethnicities around the planet. You have European Muslims. You have Slavic. You have Middle Eastern, Egyptian Muslims. You have Iranian Muslims, Pakistanis, Indians, Chinese, African, even South Asian, South American as well. So it's so this ideology, the ideology itself, you doesn't have a specific race. So this is where I'd like to replace the term Islamophobia with anti-Muslim bigotry instead. And this is I got this from Haris Sultan as well, like in my chat with him, and he definitely says, yeah, this should be replaced with this term because it's a very Islamophobia itself is a misleading term. So this is where we can say the critic of Islam, the critic can be separated. So a critic of the ideology, for example, criticizing the ideology for its misogyny, its what do you call it? Its promotion of violence, its pedophilia. These things have to be criticized. They have to be criticized, and also the control of women, for example, through the hijab and the niqab, for example. So, and I like you brought up the topic of hijab, right? Like the hijab ban in France. So this aspect is this has been very misleading because the ban is on the niqab in France, the niqab, which is the full covering. So that ban, that is, it's very that is something that most people would agree that, this shouldn't be the case. This is controlling women. The hijab.
Yeah, but there's this woman in a niqab on BuzzFeed that said that she was not oppressed and she's doing it for God.
Oh my goodness. This is where I come. It's when you're doing this for God, that's not your choice, is it? You're doing it for an invisible creature that you might not even exist. And how much are you sacrificing for an ideology just to please that creature? That, for an afterlife, and you're going to be without a hijab on the afterlife. It's like, what was the point of, creating you in the first place? And this is a struggle with a lot of Muslim women who cover up. That is, it's a sad reality. Like there's the impression that, oh, it's my choice, but in reality, no, it is mandated by a religion. The religion mandates this. So that doesn't make it a choice.
Oh no, it's Mustafa. You're getting it wrong. It's their choice. They wear you wear it or you burn in hellfire for eternity.
Exactly. How is that a choice exactly?
Well, no, it's technically a choice. You're getting it all wrong.
You choose not to burn in hellfire.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. It's my choice. Otherwise, I'll.
But the thing that I mentioned, want to bring up is that it's not that they're singling out the hijab or the niqab like these Instagram posts make.
Mm-hmm.
They're banning all religious. Why isn't no one standing up for Sikhs? Their turban means just as much as a hijab. Why is no one standing up for Sikhs? I'm sure a Christian's cross means the same thing to him. Why is no one standing up for a Christian?
Yeah, and this is where France is, it's being consistent. And this is something what people don't look into is that they actually,
if you want to go support the hijab, go support the turban, because I'm sure Sikh guy's turban means just as much to him. Like my only doubt with these Instagram posts is if you want to go defend it, it's an ideology difference. Go defend it, but be consistent in your mental state. Right now, the difference is I actually support. If you want to wear it, just I'm not going to tell you what to wear. It's a free country. Yeah. So so this is a difference of opinion between you and me. But I'm not going to sit here and threaten you and only talk about one thing. What I brought up was that there's multiple things that were banned. I'm trying to be consistent along the board, saying all these are acceptable. You have to understand these are oppressive, these are so and so, these are so and so. I agree with all that, but if someone full well knows that with full mental sobriety and chooses to wear it, then I'm not going to sit here and tell him not to do that, unless he's in front of an ATM and I need to see that person's face for identity,
for identification. Yeah, and not only
other than that, it's your choice.
And the Instagram post, the Facebook post, they're very misleading because it's it's the what the law states is that it's until 18 years old, um, they are not allowed to wear the hijab in school, because of course kids cannot make that decision, and they're kind of correct on that. After
Yeah.
18 they can go wear the hijab wherever they want. And I think France, I feel like sometimes it's a bit too very militant secularist. And sometimes I feel like this might be necessary, though I personally wouldn't necessarily agree with it. So I have my own reservations with it. But at the same time, if they're being consistent with all religious symbols, that is. And what's funny is that France is everybody's easy punching bag. There are other countries who did ban the niqab and covering. There's Chad, there's Cameroon, there's Austria, there's Belgium, there's Sri Lanka, there's Tajikistan. So, and there are a few other countries that did list that banned the niqab, and nobody talks about these countries. Maybe they just briefly talked about it in France, but with the Instagram post, they always target France.
Speaking of Instagram posts and all, do you know what pissed me off the most?
Yeah.
There's some YouTuber named Ninja Mommy. She can do whatever she wants, but she has this
Oh,
one video. I think I showed it to you before I moved to my new location, where she claimed that her biggest flex is that her husband didn't see her face due to this niqab until they got married.
that's kind of sad. Actually, very sad. Like, I would want to see the person I'm marrying, right? Like, it's sure you can say that, oh, it's my flex that he loved me for my personality. But then after, what if he didn't like your face after that? Then could you make that flex? No. And not only that, you were kind of forced to be in this lifestyle. So you really, it's sad that you don't have a choice in this. Like, you have to, your mind is so warped in this ideology that you're kind of imprisoned in a way.
Yeah, and like what pisses me off about that most is like, let's say, like I totally understand the requirement of lack of physical touch, like between a man and a woman to
Mhm.
reduce, or like especially like not wanting hugs or something like that. I totally
Yeah.
understand that, but standing there in a job interview and like when it's a cultural norm to give a handshake or something like that, just flat out denying that to your employer due to religious reasons, not even because you got like cold or something, I think is rude. When it's a cultural norm to shake hands, like it's like going into a gurudwara for Sikhs, and then them asking you to bow to God, and then you say, "Oh, I don't bow to other people's gods."
Yeah, and
It's a
keep in mind,
custom. You
though,
just yeah, it's
this
like
is
an ab
where it
exercise. You just
complex.
bend over and stand back up, like.
Yeah, this is where
But
it
then
gets.
if they ask you to read out like the full prayer, then you're like, "Oh no, I don't believe in this stuff. I don't feel comfortable." But like if it's like a simple bow or something, then like yeah, ab exercises.
Or the thing is, though, at least with the employer example, this is where I feel like, with the employer, for example, they have to accommodate you to the point of what do you call it? They have to go it to the point of undue hardship, that is, and they have to accommodate, let's say, for your holidays, or your
Yeah.
physical space, for example. Yeah, I can totally get that they are supposed to accommodate, at least in secular countries. That's generally the law. They are supposed to accommodate that. If you can't shake hands for cultural reasons, then that's totally fine. So I think that they have accommodated that. There's the impression that, oh, Muslims don't shake hands. No, they do. There are many that do, the many that don't, and that's totally fine. Like, you put your hand on the chest and bow as well, right? So they have come up with the alternative accommodation, that is. And what do you call it? It's sort of like, you're just accommodating for someone's beliefs, which is totally fine. Now when
Yeah.
you're something like, you're completely covered up, we can't see your face, then it becomes a bit like, okay, this is a bit much. um like, this is kind of like, these are very like old practices that really don't belong in the 21st century. Complete cover up, and for example, carrying the knife with the Sikh faith, for example, the kirpan.
Yeah.
And this is
The
also very
kirpan.
the kirpan.
Just for people who don't know the background, Sikhs are supposed to be warriors, so they
Yeah,
always carry either a knife in their turban or around their waist, and it's an actual knife. So if you go to like Punjab, or if you see a Sikh in like, let's say, Mississauga, I think it's illegal for them, but Sikhs are around the world. If you ask them like, "Where's your kirpan?" they'll like pull something out of their pocket. And it's an actual dagger.
yeah. And I feel like I wouldn't necessarily support. I don't necessarily support it because that's something like, it's an old practice. It's an outdated practice that doesn't belong in the 21st century. So, and I feel like, people need to evolve their religions, at least evolve their religions to the times. Um, as religions have done before, they have evolved to the times. Um, in the example I stated earlier, so they have to evolve to the 21st century. And there's this ideologies. They either want to impose their own ideology, they want to impose their rules, or they don't want to change. That's the second problem that we face. So
Yeah,
these are
because
the
like the point I
challenges.
would bring is
Yeah,
that like if it's good for all places for all time, and you have to dress up like, let's say, Muhammad did 1400 years ago in the desert. Are you gonna go out there in sandals in the middle of like in the middle of December?
in the snow.
No, right? You have to accustom and change to the area you are. Like for
Exactly.
me as a Brahmin, I'm not supposed to wear a shirt. I have to wear a dhoti, right?
Yeah,
And I have to eat only Indian food cooked at home for the sake of knowledge. But like in Canada, like that's not going to be the case.
exactly. So
So
you
I
cannot
adjusted.
necessarily. Yeah,
And then like it's not like I'm from a very like lower end or like an atheist. I was born in a high class knowledge giving priest family, the Brahmin.
yeah. And unfortunately, there are still these old ideologies of casteism that still exist. These rules, and you have to evolve. You have to evolve with the times, and
Yeah.
you have to also question the old ideologies. Do they even make any sense? Scientifically speaking, secularly speaking, universally speaking? No, not
On
really.
that note, Mustafa, actually, why don't I know this is going to be a big topic as well, like the scientific and all, and like you leaving. Why don't we'll have another live stream in a
Yeah,
week or
yeah,
so?
yeah.
Why don't you make a PowerPoint on exactly those evidences? We can actually go through and have like a 2 or 3 hour podcast, and we can put it up.
Yeah. I think we can do something like that because I do want to do because I want to do something
And then
on.
I know you have a discussion for Noor as well
Yeah,
for that case. So we'll put a GoFundMe then, and we'll do a live stream. We'll advertise it all over, and then whatever donations we get from that live stream, we'll give it to her.
that's a good idea. Actually, it's a very good idea. I'll ask
Yeah.
Noor's family. I'll ask her family and friends if they need anything, if they need it. That is
Yeah.
because again, I don't want to impose anything.
Yeah. Anyways, my battery's about to die. That's why I'm trying to end the podcast as well.
Okay, yeah, yeah, no,
But yeah,
definitely.
all the information is going to be in the description, guys.
Absolutely. But thank you so much, Nick. It was a lovely discussion. I think you and I, we can go up for hours and hours,
Yeah.
just talking about this stuff, and we agree, disagree, and an amazing conversation that I. But thank you so much for having me on here on your podcast once again. I love coming to this podcast. I know we're in different time zones, but I love, I would try my best to make some time for to adjust accordingly.